Daniel Bryan has just finished the story and effectively replaced Cody Rhodes in this timeline. So what's next for the leader of the S movement? Well, Daniel Bryan opens his SmackDown after WrestleMania of him saying, "At WrestleMania, I finished my story against Roman Reigns, but now a new chapter must begin. And it starts with this championship. This belt doesn't represent me, it represents corruption. So I'm not going to be defending the Universal Championship any longer, because with the endorsement by Paul Levesque, I am bringing back the World Heavyweight Championship. This belt means honor, this belt means prestige, and I will be the catalyst for this championship. So in the main event, we'll find my first challenger for the World Heavyweight Championship, as I'll be an over-the-top rope battle royal with the winner fighting me at Backlash." It's a humongous announcement by Bryan, but who will prevail in the main event? Well, with Bryan watching on, it comes down to two. It's between Andrade and LA Knight. Everyone wants to see the megastar pick up the huge win. He's throwing strikes onto Andrade and he's on the ropes. He's gonna do it, but Andrade snuffs out his hopes and dreams and sends him out. No one can believe it. Andrade punches his ticket to face the American Dragon at Backlash. And the following week, Bryan and Cody Rhodes' timelines start to resemble one another, as Daniel Bryan takes on Carmelo Hayes in the main event of the show. But as it's looking like Bryan might put Melo away, Andrade pulls Bryan out of the ring and starts beating him down. It's an unbelievable heel turn from El Idolo. He wipes out Bryan, but why? Well, the following week, Andrade is in the ring and says, "Why are you guys booing me? Last week, Bryan, instead of focusing on his true threat for his championship, he decides to go after Carmelo Hayes. Now, is he the future? Perhaps. But I'm the present, and I let that be known last week when I knocked the American Dragon down a peg or two. So for Backlash, Bryan, I want you to focus on me, especially when I rip away the championship from you." It's stern words from Andrade, but he doesn't realize Bryan isn't in the back as he starts to batter Andrade, although he eventually gets out of the ring with Bryan saying, "Oh, don't you worry, you stuck-up no-good piece of shit. You are definitely now my sole focus, and when that bell rings at Backlash, you will feel my full wrath." But will his full wrath be enough? As the match is on at Backlash, and Bryan is dominating the early stages of the contest through his strikes, although with a well-timed shot, Andrade makes his way back into the contest, and he's showcasing why he deserves his position, why he deserves the main event. He's giving it his all, but his all can't keep Daniel Bryan down for the 3 count. Andrade's getting desperate, and even hits a humongous dive to the outside, but Bryan then hurls him into the barricade, and nails a diving knee. He then puts him in the ring, and lines him up for a running knee to put the match to sleep. However, as he's looking to hit it, Andrade tries to roll him up, but that doesn't work either. Bryan kicks out, and as both men get to their feet, Bryan finally connects with the knee. He's done it. He successfully defends the World Heavyweight Championship. But who will his next challenger be? Well, on the SmackDown after Backlash, Bryan is in the ring and cutting a promo celebrating his victory, although whilst he's talking, boom! Carmelo Hayes jumps him and starts beating him down. He hasn't forgotten about the fact that his previous match didn't conclude with Bryan, and he shows his rage. He wails on him with a sledgehammer over and over and over. It's becoming grotesque to watch. But after over a dozen sledgehammer shots, Melo stops. He's made his point, as after connecting a picture-perfect cutter, he leaves. And the following week, Carmelo Hayes opens the show and he says, "Last week, I reinserted myself back into the title picture because I was inches away from defeating the champ until my opportunity got ripped away from me." And Melo continues as he says, "So I guess this is a challenge to you, Bryan. A rematch. You and I competing in the main event of King and Queen of the Ring. How does that sound?" Melo lays down the challenge, but how will Daniel Bryan respond? Well, he doesn't. He's not in the building. He's still recovering from his injuries, but one man is in the building as the SmackDown General Manager Nick Aldis storms out and says, "Carmelo, you're lucky I haven't suspended you and kicked you off my show, but there's money to be made here." And Daniel Bryan agrees. So at King and Queen of the Ring, when Bryan is 100% cleared to compete in the main event, it'll be you versus Daniel Bryan. Oh, and this time everyone is barred from ringside, so there will be a winner. It's an enormous announcement made by Aldous, but who will prevail at King and Queen of the Ring? Well, it's time for the main event of the show, and both competitors start the contest with some technical wrestling, showcasing their mat skills. However, Bryan starts to gain the upper hand due to his experience factor, as he executes a series of crisp strikes and submissions. But Carmelo Hayes fights back, he won't give up, and he uses his agility and high-flying maneuvers to his advantage, stunning Bryan with a jaw-dropping springboard. Thus, the momentum swings back and forth, with both wrestlers countering each other's signature offense. Neither man will let up, but Bryan locks in the yes lock, applying immense pressure onto Hayes. It's looking bleak for the man who calls himself him, but after a hard-fought struggle, Carmelo Hayes reaches the ropes, forcing a break, but Bryan is determined to secure the victory, so he continues the punishment and delivers a series of devastating kicks to Hayes. Hayes is almost done, so Bryan prepares for his finisher, the running knee. He's lining him up, and he connects with, making Carmelo Hayes crash to the mat. Bryan goes for the cover, and with that, Bryan successfully defends his title once more. But what's next for the leader of the S movement? Well, with AJ Styles' phenomenal fake retirement, Bryan's next feud is crystal clear, and it happens at Clash of the Castle with the same result as our timeline, with Bryan making Styles quit. But his next challenger immediately presents itself as the Bloodline dismantle Bryan, although with Randy Orton being on Raw in this timeline, no one comes to save him. So there's no one to save Bryan. He has to somehow survive the wrath of the entire new Bloodline. But Bryan has a plan. He talks to Nick Aldis, and it's made official that each week leading into the show, Bryan will face one member of the Bloodline, and if he defeats that member, they will be banned from ringside. So the first week he takes on Tama Tonga, and it's a clinical affair. Tama showcases how good he is in the ring, although after 15 minutes of unbelievable action, Bryan plants a knee onto Tama Tonga to eliminate him from the matchup at Money in the Bank. And the following week, he does the same to Tonga Loa in his first singles match on the main roster. But Solo comes out following this match and says, "Now that you've been tested, your punishment will continue. Even though my family have failed, he won't." Jacob Fatu has debuted in WWE, and he makes an emphatic statement by putting Bryan through the announcer's table. But will Daniel Bryan have to acknowledge Solo Sikoa as the better performer at Money in the Bank? Well, the match is underway, and Sikoa is dominating. He's all over Bryan, but Bryan won't give up without a fight, so he nails strikes back onto Solo, as it's an even playing field. Neither man has the advantage, so here comes Jacob Fatu. He's gonna try and screw Bryan, but then Jimmy Uso is back! But that's not all. Reigns takes down Jacob Fatu. Solo is distracted. He can't believe it. And Bryan unbelievably rolls up Solo for the free. Everyone is stunned. And that emotion continues after the match as Gunter confronts Daniel Bryan, confirming his choice after winning the King of the Ring tournament. And leading into SummerSlam, due to Solo Sikoa being occupied by Roman Reigns, there are segments hyping up the rematch between the pair from 2 years ago at the same show, which had ended in a draw. There's no fighting needed, just two men talking about their love for professional wrestling, which can be seen in their go home segment, as Bryan says. "Gunter, we both know each other's talents, and whilst I don't like you, I can respect you and your work, and your acknowledgement of how important this sport is. So at SummerSlam, we will get a definitive winner this time, and I wish you good luck." Likewise, Bryan. There's a gargantuan amount of respect between the pair, but he'll walk out of Cleveland as World Heavyweight Champion. While the bell rings, and just like their previous match, it's an absolute classic. Both men throw everything at each other to try and keep the other down for the free, but neither man will. But Bryan is relentless. He takes Gunter to the outside and starts stabbing into him like there's no tomorrow, but he knows he needs more, and looks to try and pick up the giant Austrian, but he's unable to, and Gunter takes full advantage. He hurls Bryan into the steps, and even throws him into a ring post from a fireman's carry position. Is Bryan done? Well, Gunter chucks him in the ring, but Bryan gets a second wind. He even manages to connect a running knee, and he sprawls into the cover, but that isn't enough. And Gunter retaliates with his own brutal offense. He powerbombs Bryan, but with all of his might, he jolts out the cover. What more can neither man do? Well, they're trading strikes, and Gunter clocks Bryan with a hellacious chop, which nearly breaks him in half, and then he locks in a crossface just to rub salt in the wound. Bryan is done, and he passes out. Gunter's reign of terror begins, whilst Bryan steps away from the spotlight and even possibly retires after the greatest match in his entire career. And if you like this story, I think this might interest you.